Okay, now I'm going to help you guys get a woman obsessed with you. I'm pretty damn good at this. I've been making these videos for a long time. I've also been dating women, for the past 11 years. And I've had a couple long-term relationships, but I've also had a lot of experience. Okay, so this video is like what I would call the micro nuances of game. So there's different levels of game, okay? And I understand this just because of how long I've been dating. When you first, start interacting with women, you might be drawn to like short-term strategies or tactics like pick up, or trying to use some type of, fancy strategy. I think the next step or the next progression, a guy typically learns, more high value concepts, things like looks, money, or status. Things like looks, money, or status, you really do believe that that will be the core of your masculinity. But as you advance, you understand that once you understand things like vocal tone, masculine to feminine energy, and dynamic, you could basically, like, let's say you take a guy who is on paper high value, looks, money, status, all this stuff, you could basically take everything away from him. You could take his social media following away from him if he has a lot of status. You could take every dollar away from him financially. You could take his, fancy sports car. You could take everything away from this guy. And if you just put this guy in a social setting or a social situation, or anywhere, he will just give an aura where women are attracted to him. Now, for the longest time, I did not know what that aura was, because a lot of times I even noticed I was doing some of these things, but I couldn't articulate it, or I didn't know when I was younger why some of the things I was doing was working. So today I'm going to teach you something really important. I want you to always stay above the weeds of a conversation with women to maintain attraction, okay? What does stay above the weeds of a conversation? What does that mean? What does that actually mean, okay? Think of it this way. When someone says, oh, you're going into the weeds, right? Or this is a sales term. If you listen to people talk about sales, let's say a car dealership or something, they'll sometimes tell you don't go too far into the weeds with all of the features. Keep things high level. Okay, so I'm going to explain to you what I mean. Always stay above the weeds of a conversation. You never go into the conversation. What I'm teaching today is micro nuances of game. So as a man, you only demonstrate at all times that you basically give zero fucks of any outcome. By staying above the conversation, you never go into it. The more follow-up questions you ask, the more you actually seem engaged into the conversation, the more you're actually learning things and asking follow-up questions and basically having real back and forth dialogue with a woman, the less she likes you. And I'm going to give you some examples of this so you can understand what I mean. But let's take this a step further, okay? Where this is really going to help you, what I'm going to teach today, the spot where this is really going to help you is if you're dating a woman for 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years. When you want to maintain proper dynamic, this is where this is really going to shine, because the guys who don't understand this, the chemistry fizzles out. And they oftentimes don't understand why, and it's because the communication pattern isn't where it needs to be. So when women get a man, for example, to argue with her, if she is creating an argument, or if there is some kind of emotional argument or tension between the two when communicating, I will give you an example. When a woman gets a man to argue with them, that man is now going into the conversation instead of staying above it, okay? So as he does that, he's becoming emasculated. So I will show you what that means. If she looks at you and she's mad and she says, oh my gosh, you're always like this. going into the conversation, the guy goes, always like what? What do you mean? Why is it like that? Why do you think that? Notice he's engaged. He is literally engaged into the conversation. If you stay above the conversation, you might look at her and go, whoa. And you just pause. Maybe you ignore it. You're not in the conversation. You're above the conversation. You have to stay above the conversation. A woman at all times is seeing if she can suck you in to that environment of emotion. Okay, she's trying to see if she can suck you into that environment of emotion. She might do this in a lot of different ways. She might do this when she calls you. She might do this by texting you paragraphs. She might do this by starting an argument. Anything that she can do to try to rock the boat, she is testing your internal masculine frame. And most guys don't have one because they don't understand that it is your job to stay above the conversation and not take a whole lot of those things that would drag you into the conversation seriously. You keep it fun, you keep it high level, you keep it non-reactive. Me personally, I am at a 5 or a 6 level of just chill every day. I'm never too excited, never too down, just a good pace, even when I'm communicating right now. I'm going to give you a few examples of this. So if you don't see or recognize the things that I'm teaching you right here, okay, of staying above the weeds of a conversation to maintain attraction with women, if you don't see or recognize the things that I'm teaching you today, you're screwed. Even if you're a hot guy, even if you have six-pack abs, even if you have a perfect jawline, even if you make $20 million a year, because you're showing that you don't know how to stay above the conversation when she attempts to pull you into that world of emotion. These are micro nuances of game. I'm going to show you what I mean. So if she, let's say you guys are dating, or let's say maybe even you guys like live together, or let's say you see her, you know, a lot through the weeks or the months, whatever. If she comes home from work and she says, oh my gosh, work was insane, I feel like this new policy they updated was crazy, it's just not fair, and then Becky and Natalie both told me that they didn't like how I did this, and I just can't believe it, and I'm so upset, and oh my gosh. If she says that, okay, and you go into that conversation and you say, oh, why does Natalie and Becky think that? Oh, that's not right. Oh no, that's bad. And now let's say on top of that, you even try to give advice. You say, honey, here's what you should do. I think that you should go into the office and you should do this, and you should bring this up to your manager, and you should say this. Watch what happens. Now all of a sudden you're into that conversation, you're going into the conversation. She might now look at you and say something like, you just don't understand. I can't tell you anything. I come home, I tell you all this, you don't even listen. That's what happens if you go into the conversation. Never go into the conversation. I'm trying my best to just come up with examples for you right now off the top of my head, but just stick with me, okay? If you go into that conversation, you will notice that she's not interested anymore, or the energy is off. And women are constantly reading your energy. They're constantly getting a read on your energy. So let me give you an example of how to handle it. If she comes home and she says, oh, work was so busy, this happened, I might just look at the woman and go, whoa, no way. Seriously? Whoa, that is wild. Oh my. And then I might just pause. And then I might smile and I say, you know what we should do? We should literally go down the road and go get pizza. Do you want to get pizza with me? Maybe you smile. Something simple. It has to be simple. If you have real, meaningful conversation with a woman, watch the sexual chemistry dissolve. Women don't like to talk about real things with you. If they are bringing up real things about their life, a lot of times they just want to be heard. They don't want any added advice. They don't want any follow-up. A lot of times they don't even want your input, which is amazing because it's less work that you have to do, because you start to see that most things in life are pretty meaningless. A lot of guys will call up their friend and they'll say, I can't believe she said this. Do you think this means something? She did this. Do you think that it means something? And truthfully, the answer is, who gives a fuck? Because at the end of the day, if it's not affecting your health, if it is not affecting your bank account, and if it is not affecting your overall well-being, most things in life don't matter. A woman wants to see that you have that mindset, that you know that most things don't really matter. So the second you're getting reactive, the second you're getting sucked into that world of emotion, the second that you're going into the weeds of a conversation is the second that you're losing her. And if this makes you frustrated because of your past mistakes, I don't really care, because you need to hear this, because you could be a professional athlete watching me right now. You could be part of a Fortune 500 company. You could be a high-level CEO. I don't care. The second you start going into the weeds of the conversation, watch her attraction start to go down. Stick with me. If she says, oh my gosh, work was so busy, I might just say, no way, that's wild. Wow. That's it, okay? Everything basically needs to be you communicating like you're a third grader. If you think about how you communicated when you were a kid as a third grader, you would just say some stuff, didn't really have a lot of meaning. I'm hungry, I'm tired. That's how the communication needs to be. Everything needs to be you communicating like you are a third grader, meaning nothing is super serious, everything is a vibe. This is why when you go outside with a woman, or maybe you go for a bike ride, you can literally look around and say, whoa, look at the trees. Don't you like those leaves? Look how green they are. You can look up at the sky and you can say, whoa, look at the sun, it's so warm. You can literally just look at your environment, you can literally just look at your surroundings and just say things. That's all it comes down to. Now I'm going to help you with this even further, because for some of you who don't know how to talk to women, you just need to simplify all of this. If there's a new woman that you're talking to, you can literally just say, whoa, I like your dress. It's so simple. But the problem is men go into the conversation, hey, just saw you standing there. Oh, I just wanted to say I really like the dress. Oh, what's your name? Oh, nice to meet you. Where are you from? Oh, I'm from here. It's too much. Everything needs to be simplified. So the men who don't do this, a lot of times they stay in a relationship. Like, the woman still might stay in a relationship with you. Keep in mind, the guys who don't do this, they might still have girlfriends, but there's just no longer any sexual chemistry. And it might take 2 months, it might take 6 months, it might take a year, but eventually there's nothing besides two people coexisting about each other's life. So if you want to keep sexual chemistry, you have to learn what I'm teaching you. And I understand that I always talk about my community and the language of women and all this stuff, and I understand that in every single video that I make, it probably looks like I'm just saying that to say it because it's part of my video. You need to understand that the stuff I'm teaching in there is my life's work. You need to understand how granular and step-by-step I make these processes, because if what I'm teaching you right here is new information, this is just the tip of the iceberg to how far I take it inside of that community. Any of you watching this video right now, if you have been watching me on this channel for quite a while, you can tell the vocal tone in my voice right now on this video is different than a lot of them, because I'm being serious. This is going to be like the most important thing when it comes to retaining her interest. This right here is going to be some of the most important stuff, is keeping that energy, that communication, and that dynamic on point. Men who don't do this, they may stay in a relationship, but she starts to lose interest in you. So this is what I can tell you. Never allow her to pull you into the weeds of a serious conversation. Avoid talking about your day-to-day life. Avoid giving any real meaning to any of your sentences even. The more you just kind of float along through the date and you make these overall statements that is just vibe and character, all she does is she looks at his energy and goes, oh, I really like him. That's all it comes down to. So to take this even a step further, when this gets hard, the spot where this gets hard is spending prolonged periods of time with a woman, especially if you're a guy who's smart. If you're a guy who's smart, you have a high level of intellect, you're probably pretty logical, you probably even can speak quickly because you're smart, so you can process information at a quick clip, at a quick pace. It's going to be hard for you. This is why you need to practice. I spent the past 11 years practicing these things. You spending prolonged periods of time with a woman is going to make this harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. You getting involved in conversation for real raises your investment level. She can see this. If you're new to these concepts, 1 to 2 hours max when you're hanging out. After that, tell her you gotta go. If you're a veteran, if you've been doing this for a while, you can spend like a longer duration of time when you're with a woman. Let's say you guys hang out for a day, but keep in mind, you're going to hit diminishing returns eventually. Because eventually she might ask you questions that it's hard to just avoid completely. You can if you're good, but keep in mind this gets harder the longer you're with her. So here's what you got to remember. A lot of times married guys get no sex for a reason. She's not engaged in her emotions with him anymore. And then it's like the guy who only has, 2 nickels to his name, who plays guitar, on the weekends, comes along with a vibe and a character, and she giggles the whole time. You're going to notice when she likes you, especially if she's lusting after you, she's going to just sit and giggle the whole time. She's going to say, you're so funny, ha ha ha, you're so funny, ha ha ha, you're so funny, ha ha ha, the whole time. So when you're hanging out with her, this is the few key takeaways I want you to take away. Start practicing talking 15 to 20% slower. And you need to act like you basically ate a lot of pizza, so you're in a food coma. I'm simplifying this because what I would call this in like the language of women when you come into my community and when you come into my process, I call this front end game. Vocal tone is being adjusted. When you can slow down 15 to 20% in your speech, it shows you don't have any anxiety. It shows that you probably have your life together, because you have to understand she's reading your energy. So a guy who's calm and doesn't feel the need to self-qualify, she's looking at him going, he probably has his shit together. He's probably pretty safe. He probably has resources. If you just think about that for a second, you talk 15 to 20% slower and you act like you ate a lot of pizza, so you're in a food coma. Okay? Or how do you act when you're sleepy? Oh, I'm so sleepy. That energy, women feed off of that. That natural, relaxed, masculine state is typically going to make her obsessed with you. This is what you're going to find. So I'm here to tell you this. I've spent the past 11 years doing this. I've spent the past 11 years figuring this stuff out. I've spent my whole life pretty much learning this stuff to give you these tips. And this is why I'm telling you that high value in the eyes of a woman is completely different from high value in the eyes of a man. High value in the eyes of a man, you're going to look at materialistic, status-driven metrics that you can measure on paper. So you go, oh, well, he's 6'3" and this guy's 6'5", so obviously she's going to go with the guy who's 6'5" because he's 2 inches taller. That's dumb male logic. A woman's world of emotion does not work like that at all. So here's what happens. You create this vibe. She likes it. She comes into that world. And what does she do? She text messages you and she says, want to see you. You don't have to chase or pursue at all. You're the only one stimulating her emotions the right way. This is so simple when you finally allow it to be.